Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Alexander, and you're listening to the Middle East Tomorrow podcast. In a region long defined by headlines of conflict, a different, quieter story is being written thanks to the Abraham Accords. 5 years ago, the Abraham Accords created a new political reality, and now a citizen-led movement of peacemakers from Israel, Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain is turning that diplomatic breakthrough into a grassroots reality. In this podcast, we'll discover their personal stories and learn how they each chose collaboration over confrontation to build a more united future. Joining me today is Yemen-born journalist Luai Ahmed, who risked everything by using his social media platform to counter divisive narratives and promote a message of peace. Luai, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your story, growing up in Yemen, and your perception of the rest of the world.
Right. So the first time I ever heard the word Jew, Israel, or Zionist was in my local mosque in Sana'a, Yemen. After every Friday prayer, the imam would say, "May Allah make us rich," and everybody in the mosque would repeat after him, "Ameen." "May Allah make us prosper." Everybody repeats, "Ameen." And then, "May Allah kill the Jews." And then everybody repeats in unison, "Ameen." "May Allah destroy Israel." Everybody in the mosque repeats, "Ameen." So as a child, I learned that Jews, Israelis, Zionists, these three words were interchangeable. And my creator, Allah, orders me to kill these three things. In my school, we would stomp on the Israeli flag. We would chant in morning school assemblies, "Death to America, death to Israel, curse upon the Jews." We would burn the Israeli flag and stomp on it. We would also learn in my school that God had turned the Jews into apes, and the Jews are really ugly, and that is why they hate the Muslims, and that's why they are genociding Arab Muslims. We also learned that the Jews decided to pick the center of the Middle East, that area, to divide Arab Muslims, to split Arab Muslim nations into two so that they cannot travel to each other. So we also learned that the Jews have historically betrayed Prophet Muhammad, and we learn a story of Khaybar. Khaybar is a story where Prophet Muhammad had apparently sent troops to slaughter every Jew in a village called Khaybar because they were against Prophet Muhammad. So we are taught these very vitriolic extremist stories that paint Jewish people and Israelis and Israel in the most heinous light, to the point that we dehumanize even their story of struggle and history of persecution and pogroms. The idea, I grew up my entire life learning that the Holocaust was a lie, and if it happened, it would have been a good thing. So they teach us to believe that Jewish people are just a cancer. That's why when I moved to Sweden at the age of 20, my eyes opened up in ways that they would not have if I stayed in Yemen.
Expand a bit on that, because you're saying that growing up, your perception of Israel and Jewish people was affecting education, culture, religion, all aspects of life.
All aspects.
And how
precisely.
did that change when you started traveling?
So, like I said, growing up in Sana'a, I wore the keffiyeh my entire life. I wore the keffiyeh before it became trendy in the West. So when in 2014 I moved to Sweden, and in the refugee camp I arrived in, I had realized that I had moved from the Middle East to the Middle East. Because the refugee camp that I was in, it was mostly refugees from Syria and Iraq and etc. And they all held on to these very extremist ideologies that I had fled from. So when Ramadan came around and I decided not to fast on the 5th day, they were attacking me and telling me, "Why are you not fasting?" When the Charlie Hebdo attack happened, there were people in the refugee camp celebrating the slaughter of journalists. And to me, I realized I had to leave the refugee camp. Eventually, I went, 2 years later, I was in university. I went to a student house in Halmstad. And in the student house, a new student moved in. My Swedish back then was not the greatest, so I was kind of excited that there was a new student I would be able to speak English with. So I go to the kitchen to greet this new student, and I go like, "Hi, my name is Luai Ahmed. I'm from Yemen. Where are you from?" And he goes, "Hi, I'm Tal. I'm from Israel." And I freeze. I get a fight or flight mode. I'm shocked. My vision blurs. I couldn't hear him anymore. I could not see him anymore. I felt like I was about to faint. Imagine, for 20 years, my entire life, I was told that Jews are evil. They want to kill me. They're ugly. They're heinous. And there I was in the student house in Sweden, meeting the devil, the enemy who wants to kill me, apparently, and I have to kill him as well. So when I snapped back to reality and I had this tall guy in front of me, he was putting his seasonings on the kitchen counter and going, I know how to make malawakh, I know how to make jakhnoun, I have so many amazing Yemeni Jewish friends, they are the best, I'm gonna make you Yemeni bread, I'm gonna make you schug. And I was there in the kitchen in shock. Has he missed the memo? Does he not know that where I come from, we are systemically told that we're enemies and we should fight? So that was a very shocking moment. And my brain back then was so anti-Semitic that his niceness, his nicety was registered as him being conniving. I thought, well, of course he's being nice. Of course he wants to make me jakhnoun and make me feel comfortable and make me feel safe so that he can go behind my back and talk to the other Swedes in the student house and tell them there's a Muslim Islamist terrorist that you need to be careful from. Because to me, a Jew was conniving, malicious, manipulative, and had two faces. Long story short, within those 6 months in that university dorm, he became my favorite person in the student house. And it turned out he wasn't, he didn't have an ulterior motive. He was literally just trying to make me jakhnoun and Yemeni food. And he wanted to get to know a Yemenite Muslim because he had a lot of Yemenite Jewish friends in Israel. And eventually, years later in Sweden, my best friend, who's a Somali hijabi, married an Israeli Jew. And then a friend of the family, Charlotte, also married an Israeli Jew. And they became like a part of my life. And then my editor at the newspaper I was working was Jewish, and he was my favorite person in the newspaper because he would always help me with my writing, make sure that I wrote Swedishly and not too Englishly. And so I had made these connections that when October 7 happened and I was online and I was looking at the footage, while I was seeing the footage of these beautiful Israelis that were getting slaughtered and dragged into Gaza, the first thoughts that were running through my head were, oh my God, that could have been Tal, that could have been Ofer, that could have been Ruby. The children who are getting dragged into Gaza, that could have been Noah. I could not have a distant reaction to the footage, so I saw my own friends getting slaughtered, and the more that I scrolled, the more that I realized that I was supposed to be one of those people who were dragging and slaughtering them. That is the person that I was brainwashed my entire life to become, a monster who believes that Israelis and Jews are supposed to be slaughtered. And the more that I scrolled, the more that I saw posts from friends and family members and cousins and people who I grew up with who were celebrating it, who were saying #Free Palestine while Israelis were getting dragged and slaughtered. So I was stuck in the middle where on the one hand, my friends and my family and my cousins and the people I grew up with and loved so dearly were justifying and celebrating the slaughter of my new friends and cousins and the people that I love in Sweden now. And I couldn't for the life of me bring myself to explain to my family and friends and tell them, wait, those are my friends too. You're saying that my friends should also be killed. So I pulled up my camera in my apartment and I started making videos saying the slaughter of innocent Jews and Israelis is not right. If you justify the slaughter of Jews, you're not on the right side of history. You're on the ISIS side of history. And I just kept making videos and I got more pushback from my friends and cousins and family, and I kept making even more videos. The more that people told me that my friends like Tal and Ofer and Ruby and Noah, their blood was free game, the more that I felt the need to stand up for what was right, to stand up for my friends, because I know that they're not guilty of anything besides existing.
Powerful. You traveled to Israel.
Yes.
Were you nervous? Were you concerned? Why did you decide to go, and what happens?
So when I was making these videos, just simply saying, don't kill my friends, I got a lot of pushback. And suddenly one day I got a message from Sharaka, on Twitter, and they told me, hey, we're an organization, we would like to invite you to Israel. And I remember thinking when I saw it, it's like, wait, sharaka is an Arabic word, and I thought Arabic was banned in Israel. So I wrote to them like, hey, I'm interested, I'm coming to Israel. I was very scared, extremely scared. And then back then I used to upload videos every day, so I pulled up my camera and I said, hi everybody, so I'm gonna come to Israel. I'm gonna come to the country that I learned my entire life was devilish. I'm gonna meet the people who my entire life I was told are evil, and I wanna see the apartheid and the genocide for myself as a journalist. When I uploaded the video, my brother and my best friend sent me identical messages saying, if you arrive in Israel, you're no longer my brother. You're no longer my best friend. And I arrived in Israel, they blocked me, and they still have not unblocked me. Even though I was going to Israel to look at the country, to see, all the brainwashing, all the programming that I've been fed in Yemen, is it accurate? And my mother had flown all the way to Austria, where I was, to try to stop me from going there, to tell me that I would be normalizing the Zionist entity. And to me, I didn't care. I was supporting my friends. I was supporting Noah and Ruby and Tal, and they could have been in Israel. They could have been dragged and slaughtered. I was defending my friends. So I went to Israel, and I was really, really scared on my way there. In my head, it was kind of like, best case scenario, an Israeli finds out I'm Yemeni Muslim and then spits at me, tells me to go back home in Hebrew, and I could deal with that. Worst case scenario, that an IDF soldier finds out I'm from Yemen, Sana'a, either at the airport or in Israel, and quite literally shoots me. I was convinced that there was a big chance that I would be shot in Israel because I'm an Arab Muslim, and that is the narrative that we are fed in Yemen. They hate us, they want us dead, they're genocidal. But at that point, I had already made videos defending Israel and the Jewish people, and I thought I had to go there, I had to see for myself Israel. And I also remember thinking I was really scared on the airplane, because imagine if I actually went to Israel and I got shot. That would have been the most embarrassing death in the Middle East, because I had already defended Israelis and Jews, and then I go to their country and then I get shot there. It would have been extremely embarrassing, especially for my family and my mother. So I had these anxieties, and when I arrive in Israel, I'm waiting at the border control. I'm scared that they're going to take me into this dark room and strip me naked to see if I had like bombs inside me. And I'm sat there worried, shaking, scared, and the cutest little girl comes up to me and tells me, hey, you're Luai Ahmed, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. I'm like, sure. So she sits next to me and asks me a few questions, and she was very kind, very sweet, very considerate. I get a message on my phone from my partner. I look at my phone, she sees my phone, and she goes like, is that Taylor Swift? And I go, are you a Swiftie? And we start talking about Taylor Swift in the middle of my interrogation of entering Israel. And then she remembers and she tells me, wait, never mind. So who did you come here with? And I tell her, well, I came with my boyfriend, but he's blonde and blue-eyed. So you guys let him right in, and you stopped me here because I'm an Arab Muslim. I was having like a cheeky moment of like, gotcha. Do you see? This is the Israeli racism that they're talking about, and it's real, because my boyfriend was let right in because he's blonde and blue-eyed, but because I'm Arab Muslim, I'm stopped here at the border control. So she laughs and blushes and then looks at me and goes, okay, fine. I stop you here for 5-10 minutes and we'll let you right into Israel. But if I come to Sana'a, Yemen, you would shoot me at the airport. And when she said that to me, it was like a chill ran down my spine, because she was absolutely right. Here I was calling out this double standard of her letting my blonde, blue-eyed boyfriend in and stopping me, when a double standard that I never even thought of is what she just told me, that I'm complaining about racism because she's asking me a few questions, mind you, while my country is firing ballistic missiles at Israel at the time. While if she had made the same attempt to go visit my country, she would get slaughtered at the airport. That was one of those moments that made me realize that the moral inequivalency between how, and even they gave me like a small slip on my passport so I can travel to other countries, because if they stamped on my passport that I had been in Israel, I would face a lot of problems. So that was one of those moments when I was shocked at the airport. And as I was going into Israel, she looks at me, she goes like, by the way, my boyfriend is half Yemenite. The same girl. And walking into Israel with her telling me that her boyfriend is half Yemenite was also quite shocking, because my knowledge of Israel as a country, as a nation, was so minimal. I did not know the country at all. I did not know that Yemenites mixed. I did not know that people were one big family. And going into Israel, I was able to open my mind and my heart to a people that my entire life I demonized. And yeah, the rest is history. The more that I stayed in Israel, the more that I realized that I am a Zionist. I do believe in the Jewish people's right to their country. In fact, in Israel, so many people look like me. Everywhere I go in Israel, there's so many Yemenite Jews, and those are the same Yemenite Jews that we persecuted in Yemen. So this is the point of view that was so confusing to me. On the one hand, in my country, in Yemen, we have persecuted and isolated and hated and genocided the Jews even. There was a genocide in the 16th, 17th century where the king of Yemen decided to make a final solution for the Yemenite Jews and execute all of them, and he held them all in the center of the hottest desert in Yemen to get rid of them. So as Yemenite Muslims, we have persecuted and isolated and ostracized the Jewish community. And they started migrating to Israel. This is what Yemenite Jews were telling me in Israel as well. Do you know that my grandparents started coming here in the 18th century, before Zionism was even a thing? Yemeni Jews were running away from Yemen, and they arrived to Israel before the creation of the State of Israel. And now, 80 years later, after their state was created, Yemen is still so obsessed with the Jews that instead of feeding our 10 million starving children, we're manufacturing ballistic missiles that cost millions of dollars to fire at the Yemenite Jews. It's like I see anti-Semitism from so many different angles now that I've met Jews, now that I've been to Israel so many times, now that I've learned about like the Israeli lobby and what the Israeli lobby is really. So yeah, I just ended up opening up my mind and my heart to the Jewish and Israeli people, and in turn I became so much more knowledgeable about the issues in between my people and the Israeli people.
There are so many takeaways from what you just shared. That was so powerful. The incredible personal risk that you took to travel in the first place with opposition from family and friends, that takes tremendous courage. But how powerful to finally meet people face to face. And I was struck by the kindness and grace you were shown and you showed to other people. These are incredibly powerful moments. In that moment, as you're experiencing all this, did you have sort of a vision that this will be your life's work? Or did you have to kind of take it all in for a bit? I imagine it was incredibly overwhelming.
It was very overwhelming because for me, like my mother, my mother was married off at the age of 8 and became a feminist human rights activist. And her entire lifeline became fighting for girls, Yemeni girls' rights to the ability to educate themselves, not being forced to marriage, and etc. Now, unlike my mother, I was born in the same society, but I knew I was gay since I was a kid, and my society was telling me that I should be killed and burn in hell for being gay. So my fight became fighting for women's rights, like my mom and my cousins, but also the gay people of the Middle East who no one talks about, being one of them and saying, why are we being executed in our countries? Let's talk about Islamic extremism, how it is destructive to our people. And then I moved to the West, and I'm seeing that the West is relativizing and ignoring Islamic extremism, in many cases actually financing Islamic extremism. I was seeing Sweden and Western countries literally funding the terrorists who I fled from. And so that became my life, to fight against Islamic extremism. And then when October 7 happened, and I went to Israel and I saw people celebrating the slaughter of Jews, I realized that the Jewish people in Israel are also a part of my fight. They're also a part of the fact that my mom was married off as a kid, the fact that I grew up my entire life calling black people slaves, the lack of moral understanding, the lack of humanity towards those who are different from us is the main issue in the Middle East. And it took October 7, it took the slaughter of 1,200 Israelis to make me realize that they are also victims of this vitriolic hatred and extremism that we're teaching in schools and mosques. It's crazy to me that as a kid, when I heard my Islamic studies teacher say that I should be killed and burn in hell, I was able to resist it a little bit. Wait, what did I do? Why would I go to hell? Why should I be killed? What did I do as a kid? But like when they were telling me that Jews and Israelis need to be slaughtered, it was like, yeah, well, of course. So it took a certain level of selfishness for me to be able to understand that Israelis and Jews were also a part of this fight when they became my friends too, when I was targeted. When Hamas targeted my friends, then it became a part of my fight as well. And that is why I feel like this duty, the fact that I was able to open up my eyes to the Israelis and the Jews and see that they're actually normal human beings and they just want peace, that the fact that they've put up 5 peace negotiations with the Arabs, and we have said, the Palestinians have said no to every single peace deal. Like for me now, I look at that. Before, I used to think, oh, it's fake peace negotiations. They're just being Jews. They're lying about the peace negotiations. But now that I know them, I know that Israelis and Jews 100% want to make peace with us. They have been trying to do it since the beginning. And due to extreme anti-Semitism, the Arab world has not given them a chance. But now we are giving them a chance. And that's my role as a Yemeni, as someone who has opened up his mind and heart, is to show other people that the Israelis and the Jews, they want peace with us, and we also have to give out our hand and show them that there are people from our region who want that peace as well.
Mm-hmm. Luai, what would you say to anyone who feels one person cannot make a difference?
Have you ever tried sleeping in a room with a mosquito? Like, you will not be able to sleep if there's one tiny mosquito in your room, because we do have a lot of impact as individuals to those who are around us. And for me, when I've changed, like I've gotten many messages from people, like strangers who tell me I've helped them understand the conflict better. They've seen Israel from a different light, and anti-Semitism as well. Yemenis as well, many Yemenis and Arabs who send me that. But it doesn't hit as much as when it's someone who I knew, like a family member or a friend, someone who I cherish so much, when they tell me the same thing, or that they tell me that I have impacted their worldview on the conflict differently, I get a sense of euphoria and happiness that I can't explain, because the closer that someone is to me, the more that I want them to realize that, you know, we were fed false information, and we need to look at the conflict in Israel and the Jewish community differently now. So no one is too small to make impact or change, you know. I didn't, when I started uploading my videos in the beginning, I didn't know that, you know, they would reach so many people and I would be able to reach hundreds of thousands and millions of people through videos. But and now, like, I see the impact is like when I'm in Israel, or when I see people who agree with me and meet me, they show me such a sense of gratitude and happiness. Like, they're also like children who watch my videos and tell me that, like, my videos make them feel less alone and less insane. And to me, that is like very important. But what's most important is to raise the Arab Muslim consciousness about the Middle East and Israel. So I had a few videos where I was wearing traditional Yemeni clothes in Israel, walking around bars and talking to Israeli Jews and making, you know, jokes and things like that. And those videos went viral in Yemen. Now, most of the comment sections are negative. Who is this Mossad agent? How much is he getting paid for this? He's bought by the Israelis and by the Zionist lobbies, and etc. And I would get these people, friends and cousins and family members would send me the videos. Look, they would go like, look at all the comments. They're all negative. They all call you this and that. I'm like, sure. So this video has like 800 negative comments of Yemenis calling me this and that. But this video has 1.3 million views, and 1.3 million Yemenis got to see that a Yemenite Muslim wore the Yemeni clothes and walked around Tel Aviv and talked with Israeli Jews. And to me, that is something that I never thought or believed could happen. Mm-hmm. I thought I was going to get shot in Israel. So when I realized, wait, Israelis are amazing people and I can actually make videos in Israel. So in Israel, I'm like, what can I do? Let me make videos wearing the Yemeni clothes so that Yemenis can see for themselves that you can be a Yemeni Muslim and walk around Israel. So I make a lot of my content thinking about my people and the brainwashing we're subject to, and how can I prove to them that all the lies that we're told are not real. So that's where I tackle it from. And I feel like that's what makes a lot of people find my content to be interesting and why it touches them so much, and it inspires many of them. I actually met a Muslim creator who told me that I was an inspiration for her to start making video content, and now she has like 30,000 followers, and I was shocked when she was telling me that, like, wait, because of me? Like, how? So yeah, and that's the ripple effect. Like, the more that people like me and like her and others start making videos, the more brave other Arab Muslims get in our stance, because we should be brave in our stance. Those who want to eradicate Israel and kill Jews and Israelis are very proud and confident in their extremity. Why can't we be as proud and confident in the fact that we want peace and we're willing to go a long mile in order to secure that peace?
Where do you see the Middle East in 10 years? What's your hope and dream?
My hope in the Middle East is that that someone like myself would be accepted. Because even though I am from the Middle East, I grew up my entire life in the Middle East, there are so many places in the Middle East that I couldn't go, that I would have to hide my identity. I could not tell people that, I'm critical towards Islamic extremism. I am pro-LGBTQ rights. I am pro this and that. I can't be myself in most parts of the Middle East, even though I'm a very peaceful person. So my hope is that in 10 years, I would be able to travel all around the Middle East without being scared of people finding out who I am or what I do, or my identity, whether it's like politically or sexually. Like, my hope is that in 10 years, Yemenis like me would not need to be Swedish citizens, would not need to be protected by a Western government for them to have this freedom. Because the freedom that I have that allows me to stand in front of this camera and talk to you very openly is the fact that I am a Swedish citizen. And my hopes and dreams is that we Arab Muslims who are loud and proud of our, progressive ideas would not have to be scared enough to need a Western government to back us. So my dream is that in 10, 20 years, I can just throw my Swedish citizenship and just grab my Yemeni passport and be able to travel all around the Middle East and be myself and say the things I believe in. And it's just basic things like women's rights, gay rights, Jewish rights, human rights. So the ability to be able to speak the language of human rights unabashedly in the Middle East is my dream and hope. Whether it's in 10 years, 20, 50, 100, 200. It took Europe hundreds of years to get where they are, right? They used to burn women 500 years ago. So I don't care if it's 100, 200, 300 years. As long as we get there, maybe it might not be me, it might be my grandchildren who would be able to travel to the Middle East and be free. So that's my hope and dream.
What a fascinating and full life you have already lived, and you're young. Can't wait to see what the future holds. And thank you for talking with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful conversation. Imagine what the world would look like if everyone used social media this way. For more stories on people shaping tomorrow's Middle East, visit partners.foxnews.com/met.